of the Health Hun podcast. Today I'm going to be talking to you about all things IBS. So IBS is Irritable Bowel Syndrome, which is what I have and which is what a lot of people have. I'm going to be discussing everything about it. Basically, I'm going to be talking about the gut-brain connection, going to be talking about your gut microbiome, going to be talking about your relationship with food, going to be talking about trigger foods, intolerances, stimulants, the lot, and really going to talk about your relationship with yourself and your body. The last episode I spoke about my history with eating disorders, and I touched a little bit on, I suppose, body dysmorphia and how IBS played a role in that, and how getting diagnosed with it or being undiagnosed for such a long time really fucked up my head, fucked up my relationship with food, myself and my body, because of the severe distension, the severe bloating, the uncomfortableness, the use of laxatives and so on. I'm going to be talking about the types, I'm going to be talking about the food, I'm going to be talking about things that you can do to support that gut-brain connection, meditation, yoga, zenning the fuck out, and so on. So yeah, I really hope you get value from this episode, and let's get stuck in. So what is Irritable Bowel Syndrome? For the foreseeable of this episode, I'm going to talk about IBS. I'm not going to say the big massive name. But just to help you understand, a syndrome is a collection of symptoms, okay? So I might have IBS, which I do. You might have IBS, and you might have very different symptoms to me, okay? So the types of IBS are IBS-C, which is constipation predominant, which is what I can get if I don't look after myself. IBS-D, which is diarrhea predominant, and which is what I have been getting sometimes because of a fucking Bali belly. If anyone comes to Bali, you'll know that you just have to expect that you're going to get some sort of food poisoning, you're going to get some sort of nasty little infection, that you're going to be either vomiting or diarrhea or both. It's not a very pleasant experience. I had it for my first 3 months living in Bali, and I finally got over it in January, and oh my god, it was not a vibe. I even thought that there was something wrong with me internally, like a parasite or something, so I was actually going to get it investigated further, because like colitis and colon cancer and stuff like that does run in my family. So I was just a bit afraid, a bit nervy, when it was actually just what Bali does to you. So yeah, anyone coming to Bali, prepare yourself. So essentially diarrhea predominant, then there's IBS mixed, which is a combination of both, so you can go between either constipated or diarrhea. One can actually cause the other, and I might explain that in a minute. Then you can also have undetermined type of IBS, which I suppose is pretty much the same as mixed, I suppose, if it's undetermined. But anyway, someone else made that category, I didn't. How you get diagnosed is you must meet the Rome criteria, okay? A lot of people will suffer with either constipation or diarrhea thinking that they have got IBS, when at the end of the day you do need that cramping. So if you look up the Rome criteria on there's usually different versions, so there can be Rome criteria 3, 4, I'm not sure what version it's on at the minute, but if you look it up in your present day, so whatever year it is, if it's 2022, if it's something after that, you can figure it out from there. But essentially there is a different frequency for cramping alongside either constipation or diarrhea, so differences in bowel movements, and then also the bloating and possible distension, possible acid reflux, which is associated with GERD. GERD is a gastroesophageal disorder as well that can be associated, reflux disorder that can be associated with IBS. So yeah, the cramping is what, like I said, the cramping is what makes it stand out from chronic constipation or chronic diarrhea, so you must have that to go alongside that as well. So that's the types, and I want to discuss the different factors that can influence IBS, okay? So you've got your gut-brain connection, you've got your gut microbiome, and then you've got the digestive system itself, okay? The gut microbiome is a collection of microbes, so bacteria, different pathogens, different yeasts, different things like that. Then you've also got the gut-brain connection, which is a nerve that goes from your gut to your brain and vice versa, called the vagus nerve, okay? And this is bidirectional communication, which means your brain can communicate with your gut, and your gut can communicate with your brain, okay? Your gut microbes can also be involved in that communication pathway, so that's what's really important. I remember in 2017, I read the first book that helped me understand the gut-brain connection. It's literally called The Gut-Brain Connection, and I was blown away. So I loved it because obviously I did science in college, I did biology in college, and I was absolutely fascinated. I loved learning more about research, I loved understanding more about the body, and I just felt like everybody needed to know this information because it was something that was just I didn't know about. Like I said in the previous episode, when I looked up about IBS, it just spoke a little bit about fibre, and I felt like I cracked the code when I learned about different fibre types, not realising that there is so much more to it. And that's how I kind of know what I know today, because I've done years and years of research, and that's how I can support my clients today. But you've got the gut-brain connection. Basically, your nervous system is involved in anything that is to do with instantaneous movement, okay? So the function of your nervous system is to keep you safe, so keep you in survival mode, keep you away from danger. It reacts rapidly. So if you think about it, if you put your hand on a hot stove, you're going to take that away instantaneously. There's no conscious action that you're like, oh fuck, my hand's on a hot stove, I better take it away. No, you've already burnt your hand. You have literally scalded yourself. So this is the purpose of these quick reactions. But the difference is then if someone kind of has an overactive or a hypervigilant nervous system, which is typically associated with IBS. So if you have anxiety, you could have digestive issues, and vice versa. If you've got digestive issues, you could have issues with your mental health as well. So this is the issue as well. It keeps us safe, but sometimes we can think that we need to run away from danger when we don't, and I'll get into that as well. The last thing that I want to mention is the digestive system itself. So your gut motility is really, really important. The food that you consume is really, really important. Any intolerances, any triggers, any FODMAPs, any stimulants, all that stuff matters. Exercising, over-exercising, under-exercising, all feeds into one another. So yeah, so basically with your gut microbiome, like I said, we have a certain amount of species, okay? And this will vary from person to person. Scientists are still trying to figure out like what is considered a good gut microbiome, what's a bad one, and so on. Because essentially we do want a majority of a population of the good ones, the ones that serve us as human beings, but we do also need a certain amount of the bad ones. And I say quote bad ones, quote unquote. They're only bad if they are overpopulated, or if they're considered like a parasite, or H. pylori is a particular type of bacteria that can be really detrimental to your health. So there are certain ones that are not meant to be there and they're considered bad, but we do have certain ones within our system that do serve a purpose, okay? They either serve a purpose for us, or they serve a purpose by supporting the good ones that are there. They all communicate with one another. It's a little community of our microbes that we've got going on in there, okay? So we want to keep the good ones thriving, okay? Why? Because they keep us well, because they help us digest food. So for example, lactobacillus bacteria, they can help us break down dairy, okay? So there's a sugar in dairy called lactose. They can help us break it down and get the nutrients that we need from it. This is where a lot of myths can stem from. So there is a documentary, What the Health, and they talk about, I think it's something like a cow has a few stomachs extra. I don't know how many, I'm not going to quote it, but a cow has more stomachs than us, so that's how they're able to consume it. We don't have that many stomachs, so we shouldn't be consuming dairy, blah 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 blah. I'm not going to get into the dairy argument today. I'm not going to discuss ethics either, whatever. Or environmental reasons. I'm just going to discuss the fact that we can actually process dairy if we've got lactobacillus that can help us break that down. There are people that are lactose intolerant, and that can be a part that plays in IBS to do with FODMAPs, and I'll explain that in a minute as well. So yeah, they are beneficial for us. We do need to keep them thriving. The question on everybody's mind is, do we need to take a probiotic? And because the research is still like, there's so much research that needs to be done, okay? There's so much that still needs to be done for this to get to a place of personalized care when it comes to probiotics. There is amazing research done on specific conditions. So for example, inflammatory bowel disease, so IBD, is different to IBS. There is amazing research done on specific bacteria strains and specific probiotics. So for example, VSL number 3, so Vivomix, is a type of probiotic that can really, really help, that has been proven to help with inflammatory bowel disease, okay? And I have seen amazing results in some of my clients for keeping them in remission with that. With IBS, because it isn't just about the bacteria, because it isn't just about the inflammation, it's also about the gut-brain connection. There is so much more you need to do than just look at probiotics, okay? They may help you to a certain point, but they're not going to get you over the finish line. They're not going to help you maintain that condition on a regular basis. And with IBS, there is no cure. There is no cure. I really tried to look for it and there's none. I'm sorry to disappoint, but there's none. With IBS, you need to manage your symptoms, okay? You need to work on improving your quality of life. You need to work on you feeling peace. I was going to say control, but not control. We don't want control. We want to feel peace. We want to feel that we don't need to have control over the situation because we know what we're doing on a daily basis. We know how to respond if we have a flare-up and so on. So yeah, with probiotics, there are certain strains that can be supportive of constipation. There are certain strains that can be supportive of diarrhea and so on. It is going to help your gut microbiome, but what's really going to help your gut microbiome is really making sure that you let them thrive. How do you help them thrive? By making sure you've got a diverse range of fruit and vegetables, whole grain sources, nuts, legumes, less processed foods, less protein in isolation, less processed meats, and really supporting that kind of plant-based eating. So you can eat plant-based and you can eat meat as well. You don't have to be a vegetarian or a vegan to eat plant-based, okay? With the probiotics, you do need to be taking them for a prolonged period of time. It's called inoculation, where you're adding them in and you're allowing them to grow, okay? They take a certain amount of time to grow and to get comfortable in their environment. And if you just take them for a week, they're probably not going to last. If you can take them on a consistent basis for a period of 3 to 4 months, you're actually giving them time to thrive in that environment while also feeding their foods that they actually want to have. So prebiotics are the type of foods that basically support that, which is the difficult thing with IBS. So there's a lot of general statements for gut health, but then you have to tailor that, or you have to be cautious of it with IBS. So some prebiotic foods are actually FODMAP foods, which can cause issues with IBS, okay? So prebiotics, like I said, are the food that feed gut bacteria. It's their preferential source of nutrients. And then FODMAPs. I'm going to say this one time, and I'm probably going to fuck it up. FODMAP stands for fermentable, oligo, monosaccharides, and polyols, whatever. So yeah, there you go. I'm not saying that again. Look it up. No, I'm only joking. It's an absolute mouthful. But basically there are different types of carbohydrates that can basically ferment. So they're typically sugars that they can ferment, and your gut bacteria can interact with those in a negative way to produce gas, okay? And this is what you'll see with IBS, is that the gas can get out of control. You can have a lot of flatulence, you can have a lot of bloating, you can have a lot of cramping, okay? So, for example, if we take the polyols are sugar alcohols, and they are typically found in artificial sweeteners, in low sugar kind of products, and they're replaced with that. And this is the problem with like some whey proteins. They're added, which they've got sucralose added, or certain yogurts or whatever. Typical one I would see with clients is like a cordial kind of drink. There's no sugar in it, but there's actual polyols in them that can cause that gut irritation, okay? So this is, again, trying not to go down the route of diet culture, and understanding that having a little bit of sugar might actually be more beneficial for you and for your health, for lowering inflammation, for keeping your digestive system in track, than actually having some low sugar products, low fat products, whatever, any sort of diet culture products, or anything trying to save calories. And with nutrition, context is always important. So this is why seeing these one size fits all recommendations on Instagram just doesn't work. You see all this shit about like making sure you never have full fat, making sure you never have full sugar, whatever, always opting for low fat, low sugar. It brainwashes us, it consumes us, it makes us feel like having a little bit of sugar, that there's something wrong with that. Yes, it can help someone who is trying to lose a little bit of weight if they're trying to be in a calorie deficit, and having that can of Coke every day is sending them over the calorie target that they're trying to reach. But it should be considered and tailored for you, okay? So tailored information is not the general information you'll see on Instagram. Just want to put that out there. So typically what you'll see with IBS is that FODMAPs are the first to be removed from the diet, okay? So there's what's known as the FODMAP diet. And I want to tell you right here, right now, that should not be your first protocol, okay? It is a very, very restricted diet that should be done under nutritional supervision because of how restrictive it is, because you can run into issues with nutrient deficiencies, because you can actually further fuck up your digestive issues because you're removing certain fiber types, okay? So this is a typical diet recommended by doctors. When you go to the doctor, you get diagnosed, you either get a prescription of laxatives, antispasmodics for cramping, or anti-diarrhea tablets, and then you might get recommended with the FODMAP diet, and like that is just wrong on so many fucking levels. But here we go. You shouldn't do the FODMAP diet first, okay? My approach with clients is working on everything else I'm going to tell you about and really mastering those basics first. Then and only then, at the end, do you consider food intolerances, trigger foods. Do you consider, so food intolerances and trigger foods, they're basically FODMAPs, okay? They are your FODMAPs. They are the only thing that are going to trigger you, okay? Intolerance testing is not based on sound science. It's not based on sound science. It is a money racket, and the justification that they have scientifically does not add up, okay? So they have different Ig antibodies, and they're trying to justify saying that certain Ig antibodies that you will find in circulation with your intolerances, and I'm saying quote unquote intolerances, are associated with that. And it's not. It just means that you have eaten those and they're in your circulation. It doesn't actually mean that it's an inflammatory marker at all. It's not an immune response, okay? There is a completely different Ig antibody that is associated with allergies, and you would know about it if you had an allergy, okay? You have a very different histamine antibody response. It is not the same as an intolerance. It's not the same as bloating or cramping or any of those kind of symptoms, okay? So yeah, like I said, you really want to go down the route of not looking for intolerances and trigger foods, because I have had clients literally come to me with this very long list of foods that they've been told by some specialist who does intolerance testing that they cannot handle: eggs, mushrooms, tomatoes, chicken, like all sorts of foods that like you're like, how on earth did they come up with this explanation? Some foods are FODMAPs, fair enough, and some foods may trigger you. You may have a certain category. Like for myself, mine is beans. Mine is chickpeas, beans, those kind of vegetables. I've had to break up with beans. It's been a very emotional breakup. I used to love my beans, and I realised at a point that it was becoming self-sabotage if I kept eating them, so now I have to stop. I also need to stay away from the likes of raw vegetables, cabbage, all those kind of veg. If I'm looking for a burrito bowl, if I'm looking for any sort of vegetables, I have to just be careful. In restaurants, they typically have like broccoli will be al dente, and I need to make sure that's well cooked for me, because it's just going to run into issues down the line. So yeah, this is where we do need to have a period of time where we assess what our triggers are, but not first and foremost, because you could be left with a very narrow list of foods that are actually foods you can tolerate, when it's not actually a true test, because you have fucked up sleeping pattern, because you've fucked up mental health, because you've a fucked up relationship with food, because you're so stressed from your job, and so on, okay? So what you want to spend time on at first is your gut-brain connection, okay? First and foremost, self-soothing. First and foremost, meditation, journaling, calm, having time in your day to do nothing, not trying to be productive at every single element of the day, or you're actually, because you're trying to be productive, you're procrastinating and you're making yourself feel guilty for that. What I try to get clients to understand is the time that you spend procrastinating is time that you actually could be giving yourself permission to rest, to actually slow down, to actually spend a bit more time in bed, to actually go to bed earlier, to actually say no to a social event, okay? This is where you need to understand how your lifestyle as a whole impacts your IBS. So your nervous system is really, really important. Like I said, at that gut-brain connection, you need to be managing that, and you need to be managing anything that affects that. So caffeine and stimulants is the first one I'm going to talk about. Caffeine will release cortisol when you drink it, okay? So that can increase your stress response, can shift you into the fight or flight, which is you running away from danger, okay? Not actually running away from danger, but feeling like you're running away from danger. So it's based on your perception. So your version of running away from danger might be you got a text from your ex, you are late for an appointment, you didn't pay a bill on time, you got an email from your boss that you did not like. So this is where we need to work on our emotional intelligence. This is where we can work on processing emotions, where we can work on breathing, where we can really have, if we meditate on a regular basis, the science is there that we become less reactive, that we're actually going to be able to cope better. Our tolerance to stress is actually going to be higher, okay? So if you don't already, start yoga, start meditation. You don't need to be doing 40 minutes of yoga every day. You don't need to be going to yoga classes. You don't need to be an enlightened hippie. You don't need to be doing these trippy ass meditations that bring you into an alternative universe. All you need to be doing is something simple like 10 to 15 minutes a day, and it's really going to make a massive impact. Major thing is deep breathing into your belly. Soothe that nervous system, soothe that gut brain connection, okay? If you can actually get yourself to rest and digest after your meals, that's going to really, really help, okay? We tend to think that we need to rush off after our food, or we need to go for a walk on our lunchtime or whatever. But what happens is you shift out of your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight, and you are actually not going to be supporting digestion. Digestion is supported in the parasympathetic, which is the opposite to that. So they're kind of like yin and yang, they balance each other out. And that's where you will actually be able to digest your food optimally, okay? That's where your blood flow is going to be directed towards your center of your nervous system, towards your organs, and you're actually going to be able to digest everything appropriately. This is also important for exercise. So if you are going to be exercising, making sure you're not having your pre-workout meal 15 minutes before you go. Not only that will that impact your digestive system, but it's also going to impact your workout and the oxygen availability into your muscles. Another element of blood flow is going to be the liquids that you consume. So if you're drinking ice cold drinks, it's not going to support digestion. A really common thing is for people is to drink like a lot of peppermint tea. You want to be drinking that after your meal, not before. Having fresh ginger root before your meals can actually really help, especially first thing in the morning. You also don't want to be reliant on caffeine. A lot of people are reliant on a black coffee to help them go in the morning. And we want to bring that mentality away. So same as laxatives as well. You want to remove the need to have stimulants, and you want to bring your body's natural ability basically to go to the toilet regularly, to have that gut motility, that natural rhythm working, okay? So your gut motility is the rate of which that your muscles will spasm. So you have your intestine, and what will happen is they've got muscles that move along. They push food along, they push waste along, and they will move at a natural rhythm, okay? That can be really slow, that can be really fast, which can be affected by stress and can be affected by your mental health, can also be affected by over or under exercising, can also be affected by external things like stimulants, or your body can basically get adapted to laxatives and basically become reliant on them. So we want to try and work without the use of stimulants. We want to try and get that natural rhythm going on a regular basis, okay? And that brings me on to fiber. So fiber is really, really important for supporting that gut motility, for supporting that natural rhythm. There are two types of fiber. Well, there's a few types, subtypes of fiber, but just to keep it for simplistic reasons or simplicity, whatever. Essentially, there is insoluble fiber and soluble fiber, and that's what's important to remember. Okay, soluble fiber is one of the most important things for IBS. Okay, so soluble fiber helps absorb water, so it creates a gel-like consistency in the digestive tract. Okay. Insoluble fiber can help bulk up the digestive tract and can help create that kind of roughage, I suppose. Combined, and you've got that balance between them, you can have a supported digestive system. What's really common is that there's a lack of soluble fiber and there's an overabundance of insoluble fiber, or there's none at all. Okay, a lot of people are not eating enough fiber. You need to be hitting a minimum of 30 grams of fiber a day, and that's only a minimum recommendation. You can go over that if you like. But insoluble fiber can really trigger the gut. So that's why you do need that balance with the soluble fiber. Insoluble fiber examples could be like typical salad bowls of like cabbage, lettuce, tomatoes, all that kind of stuff. Whereas soluble fiber can be like flaxseed, can be like sweet potato, root vegetables, oats as well. So it's really important that you do have that balance and you do understand your specific balance as well. So you might not be able to tolerate that much insoluble fiber if you've got diarrhea. You might need to add in, maybe it might I suppose balance itself out if you add insoluble fiber. Maybe you just like really need to pull back on the insoluble fiber. A really big thing that I see with clients when they start off as well is that this diet culture mentality that they've got like a massive amount of vegetables from insoluble fiber sources to fill up the volume on the plate. And this is like, honey, you can eat some carbs, you can eat some fat, it's okay. You can get out of this diet mentality where it needs to be pure vegetables and some protein as well. And that's a really important factor. Your fats also play a role because your fats support your hormones, which feed into your gut motility as well. The rate of which that will go will be determined by your hormones, so your thyroid can control that as well. You need to be supporting those hormones. You need to be supporting those hormones and lowering stress at the same time. Fats do not make you fat. Fats support your hormones and keep you happy and healthy. Then moving more into your relationship with food. So like I said, you can actually develop fear of foods based on your IBS alone, okay? You can become so consumed, so obsessed, so fearful. You can have actual anxiety based on what you're going to eat next because you're afraid it's going to make you bloat, because you're afraid it's going to make you swell up like a puffer fish and make you feel like shit, okay? It's going to cause diarrhea, it's going to cause constipation, it can affect you in social situations, it can affect you in work. I remember when I used to work in the hospital, like literally I had periods of time where I had such bad gas that I would literally have, like, I was so crippled with gas. I used to have to like regularly run into the bathroom and like fart because I was so fucking embarrassed. It is embarrassing, and I suppose this is the thing that I'm talking about this conversation today. Like, this is fucking normal. We all fart, we all go to the toilet, we all have these habits, whatever. I want to stress though that farting quite consistently with really nasty smelling, and it's really like you can feel it in your belly quite a lot, that's not normal. That is most likely your gut microbiome is interacting with a FODMAP with excessive amount of insoluble fiber versus soluble fiber. Maybe you're constipated regularly, maybe you've got diarrhea. It's something that needs to be addressed. A random fart here and there is fucking normal, and it's fucking okay. Can we just get a PSA out there, okay? So essentially that's what we all need to normalize, because there's a lot of shame with IBS, okay? There's a lot of embarrassment, there's a lot of because of that shame and because of that embarrassment, people won't step up. People won't let people into their world. People won't talk about their issues that they're struggling with. And anything that you're struggling with, like a problem shared is a problem halved, okay? Let people support you. Let people into your environment. And it can affect people's sex life as well. This can be a really taboo subject as well, as that people are afraid either whether it's to do with body image or either it's to do with their toilet habits or the flatulence and stuff like that I mentioned. It can really impact your relationship. It can really impact your quality of life. So it's really important that you do give yourself the time, you invest in yourself with money, energy, you work with someone, you work with understanding your relationship with food, understanding your triggers, understanding how to support your IBS from all angles, so you can actually move through to that place where you're actually happy and healthy and really feeling like it's not affected your life as a whole, okay? So to bring it back to the fear mentality, with the trigger foods, we want to just release that altogether, okay? You want to go back to the start and look at an inclusive mindset. This is what I coach clients with, is that you actually look at including the foods that are going to help you, going to fill you up, going to make you feel satisfied, going to help support what type of fiber is relevant for you. Understanding, I suppose, what works for you calorie wise as well, and intuitively, eating mindfully, all that good stuff. That's an inclusive headspace. That's a positive headspace. That's a positive relationship with food. Versus, I can't eat this, I shouldn't eat this, this is high fat, this is low fat, that's going to make me bloat, I heard gluten causes bloating, I heard dairy causes bloating. These myths that are in circulation that you just picked up from Sally in the office, okay? No offense to any Sallys out there. First name came to mind. But essentially, you need to be able to understand how to work with your body, not feel like you're fighting against it. Okay, this is a major part of working with your IBS is your relationship with food, your relationship with your body as well. Why? Because of that gut-brain connection. Your body senses everything. If you have a fear from a person, if you have a fear because you're looking in the mirror, if you have a fear because of something that you're about to eat, because of something you heard, your body is going to react to that, okay? I want to explain the nocebo effect on that topic. The nocebo effect, you might have heard of the placebo effect, where something you can ingest, so say for example a medication, you can convince yourself that it's going to have a physiological benefit. So for example, you could take like a sugar pill, you could convince yourself that it's going to cure your cancer, and essentially you take it and within a space of a few weeks or months you're feeling absolutely fucking amazing, and that energetic state, that physiological I suppose high that you're on, the healing that can go on in your body because of that physiological or psychological state is essentially what can actually get you to there, not the pill itself, okay? So that benefit that you think that you're getting physiologically, but it's actually psychological. The opposite is true with the nocebo effect, where you can actually convince yourself that something causes you harm when it's actually psychological, not physiological. that comes back to your gut-brain connection. And they've done research studies on this with both dairy, with both gluten, because these are the main culprits people react to, thinking that it is the issue because of the myths in circulation, okay? Especially with like bread. Like, bread is not causing your bloating issues, hun, okay? It's just not. Neither is pasta, okay? Let's just get that out there. So essentially, they have done research studies to show people that, so say for example, we take gluten. Someone could have been in the group that consumed gluten. Someone could have been in the group that took a sugar solution that had no sort of no gluten in it at all, okay? And what they actually found was in the groups that they had no gluten, nothing that could trigger them at all, they actually found that they had those same physiological reactions or symptoms that they would have had typically associated with someone who consumed gluten, because of the psychological effect, because they convinced themselves that what they were taking was gluten, that it was going to cause them harm. This is how fucking powerful your mind is. This is why we need to focus on stress, sleep, mental health, your work environment, your relationships, your relationship with food, your relationship with your body, your relationship with money, your spirituality, everything. You need to look at your IBS holistically, okay? I cannot stress that enough. Leading me on to the last topic, which is stress. We are all stressed off our fucking tits in 2022, dealing with post-COVID life, PTSD, emotional burnout. People are terrified to set some boundaries. People are terrified to get back to the normal world. We feel like our life is being rushed, and we're all wondering, is this, like, we're walking on eggshells, waiting for the penny chop, waiting for the next pandemic to happen, waiting for the next bad thing to happen. People have been working from home and they feel like they've been watched. People are terrified to leave their computer. There's so many negative associations that have happened post-COVID, and we're all wearing stress as a stress and burnout as a badge of honor, and we need to fucking cut that shit, okay? We need to help ourselves. Your manager is not going to turn around in one day and be like, okay, you've been working so hard, I'm going to stop coming down your throat. It's a cultural thing that has happened, okay? Your schedule isn't going to change itself. The relationships you have are not going to change themselves unless you take action. Your relationship with food and your body isn't going to change itself unless you take action. Like your sleep, everything, your exercise, all of that stuff starts with you. You need to take control right now. You need to take the lead. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because the stories we tell ourselves can really empower ourselves, or they can drag us down further. And that was something I realised with my mental health, that I can even recognise that when I feel my low days, my digestion is a little bit more sluggish. You need to work on stress management techniques that aren't just based on going for a walk, okay? We need to look outside of the box of exercise, outside of the box of doing, and work on being. Work on resting, work on slowing down, work on meditating, work on sitting and watching the waves. Work on taking 10 minutes to sit and have a cup of tea without being on our phones, without catching up on voice notes, without whatever. And I'm a culprit for it as well. I've been very busy over the last few weeks trying to get everything done before I finish up on Bali. I'm recording this in April 2022, and I am not practicing what I preach at the moment, but I understand that this is a temporary situation. And this is what I say to clients: if you have a period of time and you are stressed, okay, and you understand that it is temporary, but you understand that there's not a whole lot you can do, but there is an end point to it, let it go. It's out of your control. Just work on mastering the basics and getting yourself to a point, because there's no point stressing over stressing, okay? That's a big thing with IBS, is when we recognize stress causes our IBS symptoms, we can get stressed over being stressed, okay? We need to let it go. We need to work on releasing what's not in our control. If you, however, you are dealing with stress on a chronic basis and you're not doing anything, you're doing sweet fuck all, and you're continuing to act how you're acting, you're continuing to allow things to play out as they are, not taking responsibility, not taking action, then you need to look at yourself, okay? That is something that you are doing to yourself, and maybe it's something mentally that you need support with. Maybe you're procrastinating because you're feeling like procrastinating can be something that we do because we've got low self-worth, or because we feel like the exercise is too complex or whatever. So really need to make sure that we're looking at everything holistically and not playing the blame game as well. Last thing really then is, on that topic, on mental health, going to therapy, okay? Doing CBT, investing in your emotional intelligence, doing anything that's going to help you be able to tolerate stress better and be able to I suppose, not take things personally, improve your self-worth, really take the lead, like play the main character role in your actual life, okay? But yeah, I hope everyone found this episode helpful. As always, you can find me over on Instagram at the Health Hun, or my website www.thehealthhun.com. If you found this podcast helpful and you know someone who has IBS, you have a friend that has IBS, please do share it, because there's definitely valuable information in this that can help them, that I wish I once knew when I was starting off. And that's the whole purpose of me doing this, is that just to help other people not feel so lost and out of control. Please do leave your feedback in the review section if you found it helpful, and subscribe as well. But yeah, thanks very much. Bye.